I don't know if you guys are aware of this, and if you're not aware of this, then I'm about to break some news right here on this channel to the majority of you guys. There is a Democratic National Convention going on right now as we speak. And I know you guys think, Sean, you always open your videos with something a little bit sarcastic, you're just doing that right now. But no, I'm being dead serious. There is a Democratic National Convention going on right now. And considering I was in Milwaukee for the Better Discourse event, an event that was not coincidentally tied in with the timeline of the DNC, and there's virtually no evidence of the DNC in Milwaukee, despite the fact that Milwaukee is the city that is hosting it this year, I really do feel like I'm breaking news, because I saw some archaeological evidence of a DNC that was maybe there at one point in the past, but nothing really changed in the city to make it seem like anything was happening there literally at all. Like, there were some signs that said DNC welcome, but no evidence of a DNC actually happening. Now, before I get into the DNC and the goofy and awkward moments and how I think this is actually going to hurt the Biden campaign going forward, I do want to touch on the Better Discourse event which I was at. Give a special thank you to the Myth Informed guys for not only hosting an event during a pandemic, but being excellent hosts at that. I want to thank all the content creators and speakers that I got to meet at this event. Honestly, I would start naming people, but the list would go on forever, and this little tangent would be like 30 to 40% of my video. And I want to give a special thank you to my subscribers that I actually got to meet in person at this event that came out for me. Some of them driving from as far as Chicago to come out to the event, buying me drinks, hooking me up with a ride back to the hotel, coming to the after party, and then the after party. You guys are absolutely fantastic, and I forgot to ask you guys if you were okay with me naming you in this video, and I'm not gonna do that because it's a little, sketchy and all that. But get into the Discord. I told you guys to do that before. Claim your special role for me meeting you in person, and come chat, because you guys were legitimately amazingly cool people. First of all, I have a weird amount of veterans or active duty military in my audience, so thank you guys for your service. And I'm also talking to you, Mr. I was a roof Mexican, who doesn't like when people thank him for anything, let alone thank you for your service. You were fantastic, and I hope all of you not only had a great time and got your money's worth at the event, but I hope the event met and or exceeded your expectations. Also, I'm going to have a video exclusive of my panel from that event. It's going to be right up here on this channel, so look forward to that in the future. Apparently, I was absolutely fantastic on this panel, which should surprise nobody because, you see my videos, you're watching it. You know this is, like, legit, and this guy has it up here, right here in the brain. This is where my knowledge is stored. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get into the DNC, or the Zoom conference that is being called a national convention for the Democratic Party. Now, the national convention for the major parties is typically a huge win for that party's respective presidential candidate. You can take note of this just by looking at the polling data right around the week after the national convention and see a significant bump in that party's presidential nominee right after this event. And it's obvious to see why. These conventions get national coverage. They pack a giant arena with people that are cheering for everything that the candidate is saying and all these other people that are pumping up the candidate. And usually some of the best speeches from these political candidates are delivered at these national conventions. However, due to the fact that we are currently under a pandemic, the Democrats have decided to pare down their convention significantly. And essentially what we have is a Zoom call where people are flipping in and flipping out. No crowd, no audience, and despite the fact that the mainstream media is giving these conventions the same level of coverage on their news, it just doesn't have the same effect because you don't have people energized and juiced to hear these people speak. All of these pre-recorded videos or live Zoom or Skype speeches are just not hitting the mark, and a lot of them, hilariously, are amazingly contradictory. Take, for instance, Republican Governor or former Republican Governor John Kasich, who is probably the Republican most responsible for Donald Trump getting the Republican nomination because he refused to drop out, even though he clearly had no path to that nomination during the primaries, thus all but ensuring Donald Trump winning the presidency, and his endorsement of Joe Biden for the presidency in 2020.
I'm a lifelong Republican, but that attachment holds second place to my responsibility to my country. That's why I've chosen to appear at this convention. In normal times, something like this would probably never happen. But these are not normal times. I'm sure there are Republicans and independents who couldn't imagine crossing over to support a Democrat. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that, because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful. And you know, no one pushes Joe around. Joe Biden is a man for our times that call for all of us to take off our partisan hats and put our nation first for ourselves and, of course, for our children.
Now, according to Kasich, Joe Biden is not going to take the party far left. He's not going to go in a socialist or Bernie Sanders direction. He's a moderate, and he has an iron will, and he is not going to be bent by the people around him. He's not going to give in to the radicals, and he's somebody that Republicans can go across party lines to support because John Kasich trusts Joe Biden. Now, this is interesting. First of all, this is like cringy as hell. You're getting an unpopular amongst the Republican-based governor based on the fact that he's essentially moved to the never Trump camp and he's always dogging the guy. And he always seems to be like the Republican that's different from all the other Republicans. John Kasich is not like those other girls, just doing what you would expect somebody like John Kasich to do. But this is doubly funny because you can contrast John Kasich's response or John Kasich's speech at this event to Bernie Sanders' speech, because Bernie Sanders has the impression from Joe Biden that Joe Biden has already adopted almost all of Bernie Sanders' platform. Now, I get Bernie has to say some of the stuff that you're about to hear him say because his movement is completely irrelevant. Joe Biden completely obliterated Bernie Sanders, and he's never going to have another opportunity in his life to get that close to getting a major party nomination and possibly entering the White House. But it is funny just to see the contrast of these two speeches that I believe aired the same day at this virtual DNC.
Our campaign ended several months ago, but our movement continues and is getting stronger every day. Many of the ideas we fought for that just a few years ago were considered radical are now mainstream.
Yeah, sorry to break it to the Biden presidential campaign, but you cannot have this both ways. Either Joe Biden is somebody that Republicans of good conscience that support John Kasich, because again, not like those other Republicans, not like those other girls, can vote for because he's not going to go too far left. Or Joe Biden is somebody who's adopted the major planks of the Bernie Sanders agenda, which is in fact a radical agenda, despite what the progressive lefty dorks say about Bernie Sanders actually being the true moderate. These freaking imbeciles on the internet who couldn't see Joe Biden's victory coming, despite the fact that people like me were telling you exactly what was going to happen a year out from the election, that Joe Biden would turn the corner in South Carolina because he's incredibly popular with Southern black Democratic primary voters. You can't have it both ways. I'm sorry to break it to you, Bernie Sanders, but your movement is dead. It got nowhere. You've been torched. Biden's campaign smoked yours. And considering that the Bernie Sanders supporters in 2016 actually voted for Hillary Clinton in greater numbers than the Hillary Clinton primary voters voted for Barack Obama in 2008, you just don't have the leverage going into this election that people like to pretend you have. You have a small niche movement of radical commies, mostly on Twitter and on the internet, that don't actually turn out to vote, and that's why you and your movement are always destined to lose. But that doesn't mean that there weren't Bernie adjacent people or Bernie supporting people that decided that they were going to make this convention a dorky stand for the Sanders campaign. And of course, I am talking about the amazing, the immaculate, the absolutely perfect, if you want division in the Democratic Party for Donald Trump to secure the 2020 election, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was given a speaking slot at Biden's DNC, somebody that she says that she has endorsed for the presidency in 2020, who then proceeded to use that speaking slot to set up a long, drawn-out speech, which eventually ended with her doing this.
And out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Look, I just have to admit, I love everything about this. Absolutely everything about this. Because you have Ocasio-Cortez thinking that she's taking a powerful stand. She's nominating Bernard Sanderson to the presidency for 2020 because Bernie should be the nominee. Meanwhile, you have Bernie bowing, bending over backwards to Joe Biden, who, despite not being sentient, completely crushed all of his hopes and dreams and obliterated him in states where Bernie had extensive operations, despite the fact that Biden didn't even have a single campaign headquarters in those states. So Bernie's bending the knee to Biden. Bernie's knee is developing arthritis in that position because he's so bent knee to Joe Biden. But Ocasio-Cortez is still hanging on to the dream. She's still going to pander to that progressive base. She's still going to talk about how it's very important that we defeat Donald Trump. But she pulls this stunt, which clearly is meant to divide the party. It's clearly meant to gin up the Sanders base, not against Donald Trump, not against the Republicans, but against Joe Biden. And she's so proud with herself. Like, look at her face after she says Bernie Sanders. This is a woman that is completely satisfied with herself. She thinks that she's owning everything. She's starting to pay attention to those, like, Young Turks headlines. Every time Ocasio-Cortez says something incredibly stupid, which is 100% of the time, they put out a video that's like, AOC destroys, AOC obliterates, AOC owns everything and everyone, and you could watch TYT, her sycophants, tell you for 15 minutes why this dumb thing that she said is actually completely ingenious. So I'm not surprised with the sycophants on the far left constantly pumping her up and all the attention she gets from the mainstream media, that a lot of that went to her head. And the great thing about this is that if Donald Trump wins the election, if he wins in 2020, Biden and his campaign are not going to take responsibility for their loss. So they're going to be digging at Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders specifically based on this. And honestly, this is not unwarranted, because if I was the Trump campaign, I was somebody that wanted Donald Trump to win, the next thing I would do, the thing that I would already be setting up, is a super PAC that is basically encouraging these Bernie Sanders dork voters to go out and write in Bernie Sanders in key swing states as a candidate to protest Joe Biden and the DNC and the trickery that really wasn't a thing that happened and ended up hurting Bernie Sanders in this election. Again, as I said a million times, Bernie lost because he's an idiot and he didn't think it would be a good idea to go campaign and try to get Southern black Democratic primary voters, despite the fact that you literally cannot win a Democratic primary without those voters. But yeah, if I was somebody on the Trump team, I would be encouraging right now the Sanders dorks to do a write-in campaign in all those swing states, and I would be cutting together Ocasio-Cortez's video in my commercials to do so. Now, of course, this wasn't the only moment that I found hilarious from the virtual DNC that I feel like is not getting the attention that it deserves. Michelle Obama also gave a speech at the virtual DNC, and this speech, because Michelle Obama is beloved by the media, was praised to the hill. Everybody was like, wow, Michelle Obama came out strong and was amazing and stunning and brave. She gave this speech. It was moving, heartwarming, amazing, and all that. And all I can say is that while Michelle Obama is definitely more charismatic and more likable than Hillary Clinton, just objectively that is true, she is nowhere near the speaker that Barack Obama is. She is nowhere near somebody who draws that much attention. A lot of this is just media hype. And you can see that in the way that people cut together the highlights of this, because there's a lot of moralizing, there's a lot of grandstanding, there's a lot of racial politics. However, there's one specific moment from Michelle Obama's speech that absolutely should be focused on, but is not being focused on by anyone outside of conservative media and conservative social media. And that's this part right here.
They watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages and...
Yeah, Michelle, quick note on your speech. I'm sure you had somebody proofread this, but maybe, they kind of lost their brain at this moment. But if you're going to grandstand against Donald Trump on specific policy issues, then you probably shouldn't do it based on a policy issue that was an issue under the Obama administration, when there are photos of kids in cages back from 2014, when your husband was president and the guy that you're supporting and endorsing was the vice president. You might want to leave this specific issue out of your personal speech. The idea, the audacity for her to include this in there when, again, we see the photos, and the photos have been consistently published from 2014 as a way to zing Trump, although all the fact checkers end up having to say, oh, well, actually, that was during Obama. Just leave it out. Michelle, what were you thinking? The thing that people were looking into constantly and showing, because you gave them a reason to show this, was that Barack Obama was doing this exact same thing as Donald Trump, and now it appears that you're shifting the blame for Obama-era policies to Donald Trump. Now, I'm sure people are going to point out the distinctions between Trump's immigration and border policy and Obama's, and that's fair, but again, don't have Michelle Obama deliver this point. Have any other Democrat with more plausible deniability distribute this point out there, but not Michelle Obama. Total disaster. Totally a backfire moment, because again, people could just play that clip and show the photos of the kids in the cages from 2014, from 2013, from throughout the Obama administration, and just tag Michelle for being a hypocrite. Now, honestly, that's really it for my list of things that I loved or ironically loved and found amusement in from the virtual DNC. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think that this DNC will actually have a similar impact, or will the virtual thing kind of trim down the hype and the poll bump that the Biden campaign is actually looking for? What did you think of Andrew Cuomo's speech? I barely touched on it. The guy's my governor, and he was a complete and total disaster. He's like obsessed with the virus, which is weirdly probably one of his biggest failures, despite the fact that the media is covering it as one of his biggest successes. But, you know, whatever your thoughts, just put them in the comments down below. As always, you guys know the drill. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social media accounts. The support links are also in the description box. This has been me talking about the virtual DNC, the Zoom conference for Joe Biden 2020. Till next time.